Welcome to the No Flop Zone. You're taking time out with me, Botty Nodge, and our guest, the man that Joey Wright and I both agree is the voice of Australian basketball, always has been. John Casey, welcome back.
Thanks for having me, Botty. It's big shoes to fill here without the great man, but I'll do my best.
We're going to talk about the things that are happening in the NBL, some things happening in the NBA, the draft, all kinds of bits and pieces. But let's start off with the bit of news that we've got, which is Parker Jackson-Cartwright signing for 2 years with New Zealand back there. What do you think of that move?
Yeah, that's fantastic. To have him in the league full stop is just great. I was hoping he'd be with, I didn't mind if it wasn't New Zealand, but certainly New Zealand have done well to get him back because he's so important to them. His 2 seasons in the NBL have been so impressive. He was MVP third in his first year. Don't forget that New Zealand last year, burst out of the blocks, they were 7-3 at one stage on top of the ladder before it all went south for them, but they had a lot of injuries and they finished 9th with just 10 wins. But he brings a lot to the table and now they need to build around him.
That was when they brought in Taco Fall, right? And it all, the whole Taco fell. It all collapsed. From there on now, there's mystery now because he's supposed to be signed for next season, but we're not sure whether he's going to show up or not, or whether they're going to release him.
Yeah.
So it makes for an interesting situation in New Zealand. I'm going to throw you a question without notice here. You've been around a while, as have I. The little guys in the league, where do you rate Parker Jackson-Cartwright? Because we've had some sensational guys that are under 6 foot.
Might say I've been around a long time, but not as long as you.
Yeah,
You've seen it all. But in modern day, and it's what we get in the NBL, isn't it? We can't afford, once you're a tall guard with the skills that they have, then you're playing elsewhere. So we get the guys who are just a little undersized and it can be a liability perhaps in the NBA defensively and stuff like that. But you're right. I mean, Parker Jackson-Cartwright, Jerome Randall we had here in Adelaide, who was outstanding. Bryce Cotton, he's undersized as well. But, well, he was third in the MVP 2 seasons ago, Parker Jackson-Cartwright. So modern era, he's top 3, top 5 for sure.
Yeah. What about longer distance? How would you rate him against, say, Cal Bruton?
Well, I was only thinking about Cal as we were researching the show and how good he was and how Green was and so forth. Look, it's really hard to compare different eras, isn't it? But
sure.
What I like about Parker Jackson-Cartwright is that he's happy to be a facilitator. Yeah. He doesn't have to score. A lot of those guys want to score. He doesn't strike me as being a player. He'll pass first.
Sure.
I'll tell you what I am looking forward to is not only having him back in the league, but having him playing alongside Ruben Tarangi, remembering that Ruben Tarangi and he didn't see eye to eye in the game last season. I don't know. Is there any fallout from that? Do you just shake the guy's hand and say, I remember?
Yeah, you
but
do.
We forget.
Yeah, you do. Once, like you can hate a guy because he's in the opposition, but once he walks into your colours, everything changes. Right. I don't even think they need mediation or anything. It's just automatically like, unless it was really, really bad, but it was just basketball bad, the rooster and all that stuff.
Which we love.
Okay, let's jump to Brisbane. James Bateman not coming back, even though he had that 51-point game.
Yeah.
Did that surprise you, or you think they're going in a whole other direction?
No, because so many players are not coming back. It seems that the world market has just got super competitive and the Australian dollar at the moment just can't get what it used to be able to get. But James Bateman, look, he was good. He only played the 16 games, averaged 16 points a game. You mentioned the 51 he had against Perth, which stands out. He hit 9 threes in that game. But he only had 4 other games where he scored more than 20. Right. He was up and down. I don't think it's a massive loss. Certainly the ability to hit 50 in a game, that's very useful and great.
It comes in handy now and then.
But that was it. It was once. And his 20s were every now and again. So I'm sure that they can cover his loss. But it's some of the other people that aren't coming back that are going to be hard to cover, I think, more than James Bateman. But, he's got a better deal overseas.
I think it was Phil Smythe that said this to me once. He said, if you can identify a player's best game like that is 51 point, then he's not a reliable player. Because the champions have got so much to pick from that that's what makes them. That's what sets them apart. So maybe Bateman's not that big a loss.
He did shoot the 3 ball at 48% last year, best in the competition.
Right.
And when he was going. But I can recall games, and I did some games up in Brisbane where he was a non-factor. And when they needed him, when Brisbane were desperate for a win, and he just couldn't give them anything. He wasn't consistently good, even though he was able to have that 51.
Okay, now we've got the in-season tournament with 20 extra games. This is on Wednesday nights. Every quarter counts, the blitz.
Yep.
Which has been, I always liked that. Yep. It adds something to it. And the top 2 in the final, there's a record 400,000 prize money. Players will receive 60% of that. What thoughts?
I love it. I like any innovation. It may not work, but I'd rather be proactive, try something that didn't work or it did work and go from there. But I think the players are going to enjoy it. It's basically $20,000 ahead to the winner, which the players deserve.
Sure.
And I agree with you about playing right to the end, forcing teams to play, get a point for the quarter.
Yeah.
I think that brings a lot to the table. And if we saw that change the complexion of a game, why couldn't you bring that into the NBL? And that's what I like, the idea of the Ignite Cup. Also going to be a Wednesday night, so they'll try and own that. There's suggestion Channel 7 are interested in picking up the rights to it. People are saying that clashes with the Big Bash. Well, not every Wednesday night. And the final of the Ignite Cup is going to be after the Big Bash is over. So even if Channel 7 came in and did the final of the Ignite Cup, which I'm told the NBL is going to take to a non-NBL team venue just to share the love. I think there's a tick for me for the Ignite Cup.
You know, I can recall, it was a long time ago, but there was a World Championship year where we were still playing in winter, not in summer. And because all the Aussies had to, or the main Aussies in the NBL had to go to the World Championship, they ran a tournament, an in-season tournament that year. I think Adelaide played Hobart in the final, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that does ring a bell.
Yeah, so it's not like it hasn't been done before. The thing that just irks me about it is that we just seem to jump on the coattails of the NBA. Oh, they got an in-season tournament. Oh, we better have an in-season tournament. And even this so-called play-in tournament for the finals. Why don't we just call it a top six? That's what we used to have. We used to have a 5 and 6 and 3 and 4 get eliminated.
Yeah.
You know, but why do we have to call it a play-in? I don't know. You're more in touch with the modern game than I am because there's a lot about it that irritates me. So maybe you can explain that.
I like the idea of the Ignite Cup, which is stealing a little bit from the NBA in terms of Team Ignite, which sort of stole the Next Stars program, you know, so I don't mind that. But talking about the play-in tournament versus the top six, the only drama you have with the top six is then you have to play best of three. You end up with too many games, I think. I don't mind the play-in scenario, and people say, well, there's too many teams being rewarded. Well, in the NBA, 10 out of the 15 teams are involved. So the 10 seed out of 15 gets to play a play-in game. And one of them made it through to the top 8 this season, but they don't get too far with it. But I don't mind the play-in scenario, just to keep those teams that can't make the top 4, at least keep them playing and not, you know, putting up the white flag because we can't make the playoffs now, we better cut someone, or let's develop him. And you take away from the season. The longer you can keep those teams involved or playing for something. I think that's a good thing.
Okay, so the season tips off on September the 18th, which is not all that far away. Adelaide and Sydney won't be playing in the opening round because they've got the European series against Panathinaikos and Partizan. How about this, though? The opening game of the season, Tasmania versus Melbourne in Hobart. Welcome back, Milton Doyle. It's like
great programming.
What a way. What do you reckon? What sort of reception do you think he'll get?
I'm really curious. I think that Tasmania, and I've been lucky enough to be down there for a lot of games. It's fantastic. I would recommend it to anyone. Get down and enjoy it. Pound for pound, the best basketball experience in Australia. Right up there with Perth, and Adelaide certainly close behind. But it's just a fantastic atmosphere. I think they'll love Milton Doyle. Because he's done so much for the franchise, won a championship for them as well. So I think the reception down there is going to be good. But it is fast approaching. That 12 weeks today, 84 days that this game is on. The thing I don't like about this is you mentioned that the Adelaide and the Sydney are playing the European teams. Well, Panathinaikos and Partizan are going to play on that night in Melbourne while the season is opening in Tassie. And they're going to be up against NBL round 1 games again when they play on Sunday and Monday. I get, you bring these teams in from Europe and they say they want to bring them over, and it's fantastic promotion for the sport. To have it clash with the first round of the NBL while NBL games on the same night, I don't know. I would have hoped that it could have been done a little better. And for those football fans who are in the audience, it's people might say it's AFL preliminary final weekends that the NBL starts. I like to call it Sample Grand Final weekend on the Thursday night before the Sample Grand Final, which you can watch on Channel 7. Because in the past they've waited until the football season finishes because they didn't think they'd get any traction and you get lost in all the football finals. Well, now I think the NBL has grown to the stage now where it stands on its own 2 feet. And yes, it's going to be overtaken by the football that week, but they're not shying away from competing with them for eyeballs and centimetre space in newspapers.
Well, talking about the timing, they've got the Hoops Fest right this time.
Yes, they have.
Because that was a great concept, but really poorly executed in the first season.
Rushed.
Yeah. And the WNBL didn't send, most of them, they were in pre-season, they didn't send their teams. Didn't even have some of their players back from the WNBA, etc. But this time it's January 15 to 18.
I like it. School holidays.
Yes.
Makes it difficult with Perth in terms of travel, and that's why I gather around in the football is here in Adelaide. It's more central. But school holidays, you've got double headers, NBL, WNBL. In fact, they've got a triple header on one occasion at RSC Arena, a sneaker land, fan engagement, everything about it.
Yep.
I think the first one was great, and they've learned from the mistakes, including perhaps the timing.
Yeah.
Back in September, round one, didn't really work. But school holidays, people better get some airfares quick before the airlines work out what's going on. And if I had time off, I'd be getting over there to enjoy everything. It's such a festival of hoops, and full credit to David Stevenson and the front office for taking this on and running with it.
Well, I was actually going to go over last year for the first time because I thought exactly what you just said. What a festival of basketball! But then when I realised that's the cat has just walked in.
The Wildcats? Can we say something bad?
There you go. But when I realised that the WNBL couldn't really send their best or put their best foot forward, it was a bit of a waste of time. But this one's going to be good. Let's talk about Melbourne United and Sydney Kings because I asked you to have a look at them because I knew you'd be meticulous in your detail. Do you think, let's talk Melbourne United first, where do you see them going? Because obviously there are big changes there.
There are. I like what I see, but as I mentioned, 12 weeks out, look, they haven't even got their full roster, so it's hard to say how they're going to go with any sort of definition. But what you have to look at is they've had 11 years in the competition now. They've won 2 championships. They've played in the last 2 grand finals. They've made 5 grand finals in 11 years. They've made finals 8 out of 11. They've got the resources. Invariably, they find a way. Yep. And right now, their starting 5 is looking Shea Illy, Chris Goulding, Milton Doyle, Finn Delaney, and a marquee centre. Yep. Now, if they get that marquee centre, you'd say, well, that's a 5. And to be backed up, Chris Levick is a great pickup as a backup centre. Kyle Bowen I like. Tanner Krebs knows how to play. Tom Wilson, another new face who I think is going to bring a lot of excitement. And, of course, Dash Daniels. So, to me, they get that marquee centre right, i.e. a Joe Luala-Chula, though he's not available, he's not coming. But someone of that ilk, and you put him with Illy, Goulding, Doyle, Delaney, and a named centre, and with that backup, that looks like semi-final material to me.
I was going to say it's top 4. Easily.
And given their history, given their resources, if something goes wrong, they go and find someone else because they have enough money. Dean Vickerman, one of the best coaches in the competition, and Nick Trulson in the front office, they know how to put on a show. Again, right now, top 4 without knowing. If they get that centre wrong, then maybe they're not. Right. But you just have to look at the history of what they've done, and you have to put them in the top 4 until it becomes clearer that they're not as good as someone else.
Which takes us to the Sydney Kings, who I felt were very disappointing in the season just gone. I've got to say, Brian Goorjian is the go-to coaching, but I thought he was off his game as well. I thought that whole team, the inputs, they got them wrong. It didn't seem like they really wanted to be there. Yeah. The changes that they've already made are pretty exciting, I would think. Without a doubt. And I think you hit the nail on the head when you talk about Gorge and the coaching, because they've had 6 coaches in the last 7 years. Now, that's a recipe for disaster, because the coach that's left is leaving his players there, or 1 or 2 at least, that he's recruited, signed a multi-year deals. The new coach comes in and, okay, I've got to fit him into that round peg, into that square hole type thing. But again, you look at their recent history, 2 championships, 3 grand finals. In the last 7 years, they've been finals 6 times, lost the play-in tournament the last 2 years by 7 points on both occasions. Incidentally, lost to New Zealand and then Adelaide last year. So again, around the mark. And you look at their starting 5 at the moment, so you've got Matthew Dellavedova, Kendrick Davis, Bull Quoll, Xavier Cooks, and that marquee centre I talk about. Throw him in there. And that's a great starting 5 to be backed up by Sean Bruce, Robertson, Galloway, Courtney, and Kelly LePepe, who I think has got a lot of upside as well. That's a good lineup. But I think the real thing that's going to make Sydney a good team this season is Andrew Bogut, coming on as an assistant coach. Yes. And if you haven't watched Lane Violation, which is on ESPN, have you seen it? Yes, I've seen it. Yeah, fantastic. Yep. He and Luke Longley was so
raw, so intimate. It was just fantastic, and I love what he's going to bring to the table, because he's going to keep them accountable. There'll be no messing around at training. Bogut will come at you, and you'll do it his way, or you'll be out the door. And that's what I think is going to help them. And I was thinking, researching this, the centre that they need, the centre I put into the Sydney Kings is Lochie Olbrich. Now, if he gets drafted, we're going to talk about the NBA draft on today. If someone was to draft and stash him, and Sydney said, send him to us, we've got Luke Longley and Andrew Bogut to develop
in our
him
program.
for 12 months, only play 30-odd games. We can work with him. And I think an NBA team would look at that and say, well, that's better than the G League. We don't want a two-way player. Send him over there. If things go awry and we need him back, we'll get him back, which would hurt the Kings. But imagine Lochie Olbrich, because I've got so much.
Likewise.
I think he's up. So I think he will be drafted. We'll find out today. He's go number 50 is projection at the moment. But I'd love an NBA team to take him on, send him to Sydney, work with Longley and Bogut for another season, 30-odd games, turn him into a superstar, send him to the NBA, and let him do what we've seen Australian bigs do over there.
Illawarra fans that are watching.
Sorry, he's under contract with Illawarra. I did check that. He's got one more season with Illawarra. He is under contract, but I presume if he is drafted to the NBA, he's now their player, and they want to send him back.
Yes,
they can send him wherever they want, and there may be the void's the last year. But Illawarra were fantastic to give him a chance, and the way they've developed him. Remember, he was so important, particularly in games 3 and 4 of the championship-winning series last year, and so much upside. And his thirst to learn and to get better is what sets him apart from a lot of people. I haven't seen too many kids his age with his talent, skill, work as hard as he does. He's a shining star.
That's a really interesting take, John. That really is. But I mean, getting back to Bogut though, Bogut being there, do you think that this is a coaching succession plan without them saying it? Yeah,
without a doubt. And I think in the lane violation, Bogut was open about saying he wants to be a head coach, and obviously Brian Goorjian in his 70s isn't going to be there forever. This is a fantastic succession plan. Bogut learning from Goorjian and then get the ability to take over. I think it would work wonders for Andrew Bogut. It was interesting. He said he was approached to join Andre Lamanis, the Australian coaching team, but he turned it down because he didn't think he was ready, didn't have the time to devote to it, wanted a break from basketball. He's meticulous, Andrew Bogut. Nothing gets past him, and I think he's going to work wonders for the Sydney Kings. The only downside I see for the Kings is that they've got Delhi and Kendrick Davis in the backcourt. Wonderful players. But what beat Melbourne, I thought, last year was having Delhi and Shea Ili in the backcourt in terms of two small guards. And Illawarra were able to exploit that. Other teams can exploit that. I've seen teams exploit two small guards. I think to win in the NBL, you need a bigger guard to complement the smaller guard. So Trey Kell, a bigger guard at Illawarra. Even Tyler Harvey is not a small guard. No. But you've got Dellavedova and Kendrick Davis, who are small guards, and I can see teams exploiting. I wonder defensively if that's just a minor chink. Well, it's certainly something the Kings are going to be aware of and need to work on, because that's something for their opposition to exploit.
We need a better season from Bull Quoll. I thought he was a major disappointment of last season.
Which was surprising because he played so well in Paris. The numbers that he put up there and the recognition he was given there, he was outstanding. But I know there's a lot of Bull Quoll people out there that, he's on the refs too much and he picks up cheap fouls, and that's true. He needs to get better. Yep. Without a doubt. Okay.
And we've got this weekend, we've got the Australian NBL Select versus Japan's B.League in the Global Invitation. So that's a team of DJ Mitchell, Kyle Adnam, Angus Glover, Mitch Norton, Sam McDaniel, Mason Peatling. It's a pretty good secondary sort of team. Sunday Detch, Todd Withers, he must be wondering what his future holds. Josh Bannon, Alec Alir and Jason Spurgeon with Simon Mitchell coaching them. That'll be interesting. I'm really curious to see how we go in that series, because we don't spend a lot of time playing teams in Japan, and yet we've got a lot of our Australian coaches over there and some key players that have gone there. Yeah, I think. How do you see this one playing out? Do you think we get this? The NBL gets this or not?
I don't think so. It depends on the team that Japan puts together as well. Sure. It's a bit hard to say. Look, I love the idea. I've heard the players at training talking about a lot of them haven't been to Japan before. Great experience, great for their development as players, great for building relationships between Australia and Japan. Hopefully there's an Asian Super League somehow involving the NBL and the B-League and other competitions as well down the track. This is furthering that goal that we have of having this Asian Super League and involvement in that. The only downside is a lot of these guys that are in this team play NBL 1. And you're taking them out of their team now. We're coming into the race to the finals.
Yes.
And that's the only downside I see to it, is that I feel for the NBL 1 teams where Kyle Adnam is starring up in the NBL 1 North. Glover's doing great things, NBL 1 South. And the players that are involved in that competition, because outside of building the development between Japan and Australia, it's not a tournament of note that you say, we won that, is it? It's more about the development of competition and building friendships with Japan basketball and so forth. And I just feel for the NBL 1 teams who are also suffering at the moment with the 3x3 World Cup going on. And good to see the Australian women Kangaroos doing so well, winning the first 2 games and then 1-1. But
hell of a good game, that final.
Look, the 3x3 I think is underappreciated here in Australia. And World Cup next year, but I think it's going to get bigger and bigger. Right.
Okay, we're going to jump to viewers' topics. We haven't got many,
topics.
But we haven't got many because many of them are sort of directed at Joey and coaching sort of questions. But we've got one here from Flip, which I thought you'd probably enjoy. He says, I think the rule that should be enforced more often is the tech fouls for coaches and its consistency. Some coaches, and he's named John Riley and Dean Vickerman, get a bench warning and yet continue to chirp and work the refs. Still no tech. And some coaches, like an Adam Ford or a Justin Tatum, don't even get the warning before you got the tee.
Yeah.
Do you see that?
Could not agree more. I could not agree more. And I would love zero tolerance to this. I would love the NBL to crack down on it, come out pre-season and say, now, look, this season, it's getting out of hand. And this is the problem that we've got. We've let it get to this stage. Now trying to reel it back in is difficult.
Yep.
But I see these coaches, let's compare them with NBA coaches or these coaches when they're representing Australia. They don't carry on to the extent that they do in the NBL. They feel almost obliged. And I had a couple of head coaches come to me and say to me, sideline, I have to do that because my opposition coach down the other end is getting calls because he's doing it. So if he's standing up, I'm standing up. If he's yelling, I'm yelling. It's his fault that I'm doing it. And I don't necessarily agree with that. There is an element of truth to it. And we all know coaches who demand a tech foul just to change the complexion of the game or the next call or the momentum. Yeah. So I would like to see the NBL tell all the coaches this year, you know what, we want to lead the world in this. So what we're going to say is you can't stand up. Coaches must sit down, a la Phil Smythe, and you are not...
Phil.
And you are not to interact with the referees because they don't do it at the Olympics. They don't do it at the Asia Cup. I don't see them doing it, probably because of the language barrier to a certain degree, but I don't see it happening in the NBA as much as well because you don't change anything. I don't see you achieving much for it. And if it is a fact of my opposition coach is doing it, I'm doing it, I have to mirror him, then make it
all the more reason to cut it out.
Everyone sits down, no one interacts with the coach. An assistant can speak to the referee at quarter time, at half time, at 3/4 time, just for points of emphasis, or keep an eye on this, or this is what we're disappointed with. Do it, but away from the game, away from the cameras. I don't want to see it at all. And I think it's a real blight on the game. And the NBL could take a stand here, lead the world, and say our coaches are going to be told you're not to speak to the referees at any stage.
I got another one that Joey mentioned the other week that we could cut out on the same vein, and that's, everybody that slugs someone. No. Get rid of that too. Like, just rein it in.
Yeah. So you don't want to challenge the call at all?
No. But just get on the players that are sort of constantly doing that. Just say, hey, cool it. You're a DP. You're getting 2 minutes. Don't be doing that.
A time and a place.
Yeah. Okay. We're going to throw in a bit of Coach's Corner for you.
Love it.
All right. Okay. So
can I just say that big shoes to fill here. I'm glad we're still in Coach's Corner, even though the coach isn't here, because people may be unaware of my coaching credentials. And can I just say that I have won a high school title with St Michael's and my daughter. I won a primary school title with my son from Star of the Sea, the Friday afternoon school tournaments as well. And I had 3 rules. And I think this is appropriate for the audience there who may be coaching their kids' teams, is that my 3 rules were: pass the ball to the teammate nearest to you. None of this looking over the person's head to your mate and passing it. Pass it to the person who's next to you. Dribble the ball until you're uncomfortable and feel like you're going to lose it. And if you are close enough, you can make the range, then shoot it. I don't care who you are. We don't have stars on the team. We need to educate young kids as well. So there's my coaching philosophy.
That's excellent work. Excellent work. I think you're well qualified to answer these three questions. Here's the first one. What rules would you bring back, change, enforce, or throw out? Is there anything that you think is missing from the game or shouldn't be in the game?
I think the big one is bring back the jump ball. Don't like the possession arrow. You see someone scrap for the ball, force an error, slap the ball off his leg out of court. We won it back. No, possession arrow to them.
Yeah.
It just changes the momentum and the whole feel of the game. So that's the one I would change. I think that bring back the jump ball instead of the possession arrow.
It's tactical too. Like you've got a small person against a big, you follow the eyes of the guy. Where's he going to tap it? Like there's a lot involved. And to just remove that, it's a shame. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Excellent. 2, where would you like to see the NBL expand? Like your next expansion city, which one should it be?
Well, all the cities that have had teams in the past, Canberra, Newcastle, Gold Coast, Townsville, would love to see a team back in any of those places because in the past they've shown a passion for it and a great history and great memories there. And outside of that, I would say Darwin. I know it's difficult in terms of logistics, but I spoke with Jared Molnar last week, who's here playing NBL 1 Central with Southern Tigers. He's played in every NBL 1 conference.
Really?
Yeah, won a championship with Mandurah in NBL 1 West last year. Has played with the Salties, played in Cairns, played in Melbourne, played in Albury, now here in Adelaide. Won a title in Malaysia last year. I said to him, you played everywhere. What was the best? And he said, when he was playing with the Darwin Salties, it was the best atmosphere. And I said, what was so good about it? And he said, just the people, the culture, everything about the place. He said that was fantastic, and I think they have an appetite for it. And while they don't have the venue and the logistics in terms of flights and so on, make it really difficult. But the Salties, and they're not.
I love that nickname too.
Yeah,
and I'd love a crocodile.
Yes,
with a big grin on its face with a ball.
So much going for it.
And
it's a non-sporting area in the sense that there's no national teams there, so it's an opportunity to sort of greenfields.
Okay, here's the last one. Do you agree with me that the Bryce Cotton move, it was the biggest internal NBL move we've seen in the game's history? Because I still can't believe he's playing for Adelaide.
I'm still in shock every now and again. You think about it, go, hang on.
How did that happen?
You just shake your head, don't you? Look, there've been a lot of big ones. I think we go right back to Leroy Loggins, going Brisbane, West Adelaide, Brisbane as the best player in the competition.
Yeah.
And we've seen a lot of reigning MVPs leave their club to go to another club in the past. You look at Scott Fisher did it from North Melbourne to Perth, Rob Rose coming to Adelaide from the Magic, Ray Borner did it, North Melbourne to Illawarra back in the 80s, even Homicide Williams won an MVP with Townsville, went to Melbourne the year after. So we've had a lot of those, but the thing that sets Bryce apart is his longevity with Perth.
Yes.
So he's played there 8.5 years, and he's still got, he's 33 next month, so you'd say 3-4 years that he's still got to play, and with his credentials as arguably the greatest import ever, given the service that he gave to Perth to come here. The only thing that I liken it to is Mark Bradtke moving from Adelaide to Melbourne in acrimonious circumstances.
Yes.
And they booed Bradtke here in Adelaide forever. I think if he arrived now to sit down and watch a game, they would boo him because and he took Melbourne to a title.
If he gets on a plane to come to Adelaide, in the Isles they'll boo him. He copped it that day. I've never seen anybody get it worse than what Mark did that Sunday.
No, and that whole season as well. So, he left Adelaide.
It petered out steadily.
A little bit, but it took a while.
By the time he came with Brisbane, it was like, I just Mark Bradtke. But that first one, I mean, it was always terrible, but the first one, I got to the point where I was almost feeling sorry for him because he couldn't.
See, almost. I was feeling sorry for him, but you because he'd left Adelaide and he grew
a villainous moustache and goatee.
Yeah,
he played to the
He's
villain
such
role.
a nice guy.
Yeah, I love him.
But he was so important, best big man in the competition. So
that's a good one.
That's the parallel that I would draw. And just on Mark Bradtke, great to see his young son Jensen getting picked up by the Brisbane Bullets as a DP as well. So that's outstanding. You know, he's had time at college,
Yep.
And he's been on a slow burn, but good judges tell me he's going to be worthwhile. It'd be hard to be as good as his dad, given his record. But,
he's an all-time leading rebounder in the NBL, isn't he?
Yeah.
MVP, one more championships than Andrew Gaze. All right, let's move on to some NBA. Look, Oklahoma City winning that. I'm sure Joey, wherever he is right now, is shocked because he picked Indiana in 5.
Well, losing Halliburton, you know, when he knocked down 3 triples in that first quarter just changed the complexion. And they still led at half-time.
Yeah, but that's the third quarter. They
were the best team, OKC, weren't they? You know, through the season.
Yes.
Probably the best team last year as well, but didn't win it. But,
So now we've got an 8th NBA champion.
Yes, you're not counting Kyrie. He was born here.
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
He's not Australian. He's represented the US.
He was born in Melbourne.
This one gets up McCraw, really does. You know, I know he was born in Melbourne. It was an accident just because his father was playing as an import. But he's represented the USA. He's won an MVP at a World Cup for the USA.
Plenty of people have represented 2 countries.
He's not representing ours.
No? Okay.
So I don't give you that one.
8 championships.
If you're saying players born in Australia, yes.
He was, yes.
But if you're saying Australians in the NBA, I can't come with that.
Alex Ducas gets a ring.
Yeah.
Played 21 games during the season.
Yep.
The WA coming out of St Mary's. Had highs of 9 points and 7 rebounds in season, but he gets a ring. But this one will get. How do you feel about Nikola Topic getting an NBA championship ring without playing a game all season? Now, this is where the problem arises. He was drafted at number 12 by OKC with a knee injury that he did in Serbia in May, and that's why he went down to number 12. He was projected top 5.
Right.
Had the knee problem, got out to 12. OKC draft him, and now he is an NBA champion without stepping on a court, and he's eligible for the Rookie of the Year title next season. Which he's going to be in the mix with as an NBA champion.
Yeah, well, I mean, Ben Simmons has experienced that sort of scenario with the Rookie of the Year. But I like the fact that your roster, that everybody that contributed in some way, okay, he didn't. He didn't get that. Oh, no, he didn't. But he's part of the roster. That means he took up a spot. Yeah. They could have ditched him and brought someone else into that spot. Yeah. So the fact that he's still part of that roster, I like that, because that's how Alex gets his ring. He didn't do a whole lot. That's how Jack White got his ring. Didn't do a whole lot with Denver that year. Even Andrew Gaze with the Spurs, you know, he was sitting on the sidelines in a suit when they were winning the championship.
But he was available. He could have played. Topic couldn't play. Ducas played games. He played 21 games. So it's an interesting
one. John Furphy got in.
And just credit to John Furphy, and also shout out to the stat man as well with that amazing stat about the first ever Australian to play in a Game 7. Played the last minute there, but no Australian, given everything that we've achieved at the NBA level, 8 champions, as you say, plus Kyrie, that he's the first ever to play in a Game 7. They're rare, and what a season he's had. Drafted number 35 last year and put up good numbers as well. He's been fantastic.
Okay, we've got the draft today, so it's timing's not perfect for us, but we've got a few boys in there. Yeah. You reckon Lochie Olbrich's going to go?
I think he will.
Any of the others?
The projections are Alex Tui at 37, Rocco Zikarsky at 41, Tyrese Proctor at 43, and Lochie Olbrich at 50 are the Australians in there, along with the next stars that are in the mix as well. But I really think Tui will go, and everything coming out of the States says Zikarsky will get a gig. Even though his last season the NBL wasn't great. Proctor is a known commodity and has been under their nose for a long time playing college, so I think he's certainly a chance. But Lochie Olbrich has got a lot of upside. But, you know, like Johnny Furphy last year went at 35. We didn't have an Australian drafted in 23. Dyson Daniels went at number 8 in 22, and Josh Giddey went at number 6 in 2021. So we haven't had a lot of Australian-born players when you look back over the last 4 years. It would be great, and fingers crossed for all those guys, because I can see a place in the NBA for all those guys. And if all those guys that the 4 Australians we just mentioned, if they had an American passport and spoke with an American accent, they would be guaranteed to get a spot.
Okay.
And I guess Ducas on the OKC championship winning team, you know, so many teams need an Australian. You know, we've had so much success that what they bring outside of their own abilities.
How would you feel being Josh Giddey today?
I reckon Josh Giddey's sitting on, I don't know, what, $250 million contract?
No, I'm talking about OKC winning the championship.
Well,
and him just Missed it by that much.
Well, yeah, I do feel for him a little bit, but he's certainly in a good place at the moment.
Yeah.
That close, and that's how hard they are to win. We know great players you could list that have never ever even played in a championship decider, let alone win an NBA championship. And full credit to OKC because they went about it their way.
Yeah.
And they've been rewarded.
Okay. Now you're doing a show called Cards and Collectibles on Channel 9, 3 o'clock on Sundays?
3 o'clock Sunday on 9 Go, which is Channel 99 on your digital platform.
Let's just have a quick look at this week's episode.
Earlier in the show, Robert Lee gave us a glimpse into his incredible game-worn AFL jumper collection. If you were impressed by his AFL gear, you had better take a seat because you won't believe his treasures from the NBA.
Superstar players now, you're probably looking in the 7,500 to 10,000 starting point, and the collection would be in the 2.5 to 3 million price range. A large part of it is the US-based superstars, but I also have a niche side collection that is Australian guys. I also have this very cool pair of Luke Longley's playoff shoes from the 1997 season, and Luke has signed them beautifully. These are the same model Jordans that Mike wore in the flu game. As I've gone on, having stuff that has a history and a story has become something that's really a lot more fulfilling in what you collect.
That's terrific. Luke Longley's shoes. I mean, who gets those? That's
I know.
extraordinary.
And amazing, and the large one jersey as well. But nowadays, multi-million dollars. Now, I know you're a big comic collector in the past. Have you thought about maybe getting them?
My comics are too tattered. They're all bought to be read, not as an investment. I just bought them for the fun of knowing what the Phantom was doing.
Well, there are many legends in the jungle,
yes,
and some of them are true.
Okay, we've hit 1,000 subscribers. We've hit 1,000 subscribers, so thanks very much to all of you that have hit that button. Really appreciate it. It helps with our production costs. John, thanks again for joining us. Another terrific show. I love the fact that you know so much about the game, and hopefully we'll have you back again next time Joey's off gallivanting around the world.
Be my pleasure.